Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 27th June 2017. The first article, a controversial inheritance, it is about the legacy of Justice Bhagavati in a critical perspective. Now let us understand this way. Institutions need to be strong for the order to remain for a while. If institutional autonomy is weakened, then automatically it leads to a disarray in the functioning of democracy. So, the people occupying these institutions at the highest place shall have the due respect for the integrity of these institutions. So, Justice Bhagavati can be praised and criticized. He is cited as a reason for judicial populism and judicial overreach. So let us try to talk about few cases, landmark cases. If you first observe how he became the judge of the Supreme Court, to an extent, a favor of the executive appears over here. So he was one among the three who were promoted, superseding the seniors by the Indira Gandhi government. So his role has come controversial during emergency. The first thing is, when this Keshavananda Bharati case judgment has come up, the basic structure philosophy, it has kept a limitation on the amendment power of the constitution. One of the judges who dissented on this is Mr. Bhagavati. And second thing is, there is a famous case which Mr. Bhagavati himself have repented later. It is emergency case, that is Shivkant Shukla versus ADM Jabalpur case. So in the Shivkant Shukla ADM Jabalpur case, Mr. Bhagavati ruled that the MISA is in accordance with the provisions of the constitution and habeas corpus is not available when emergency is in operation. So it has led to violation of Article 21 of the constitution, curtailment of the liberties of all opposition leaders. So this judgment made the judiciary to look down, or people were unable to take the judiciary into high regard. And the next is, Indira Gandhi government, it has considered two major weaknesses of judiciary. One is related to access, the next one is related to foreignness. So to overcome this, Mr. Bhagavati can be attributed creating new judicial instruments. But these judicial instruments are more informal and also they carry certain amount of executive involvement. So, tribunals can be attributed to him. Tribunals at the intermediate level, Nyaya Panchayats at the ground level, and public interest litigation at the highest level of the judiciary, these are meant to access to the justice. But however, the pill, instead of making the pill in a set of rules and principles, the pill was being left loose. Because of this, many private individuals started using pill for their own advantage. So that's why Justice Bhagavati's legacies, though are well intentioned, they also led to some untoward consequences. And after that, the National Security Act was passed by the Indira Gandhi government, which is also upheld by Justice Bhagavati. So, on the worst side, if you talk about evidence, even evidentiary rules are also being relaxed with regard to the pill by Bhagavati. So Bhagavati's legacy has altered the legislative process and some untoward consequences of these alterations we are able to see today. So whatever the looseness in law, it has its origins with regard to the Justice Bhagavati's dilution of the legal procedures. That's what this article talks about. Who is afraid of neutrinos? So the neutrinos, subatomic particles that pass through our body every day. They are released from the sun. These are so minute particles and are difficult to identify. Neutrino observatories are meant to this. If you observe, there is matter and then antimatter, which makes the universe in balance. So these neutrinos, when they are released from sun, they are in one form. When they pass through our body, they are in different form. So observing them is highly difficult. So neutrino observatories are recommended. So you already know that LIGO, it has identified the gravitational waves as predicted by Mr. Einstein. Similar is the case neutrino observatories in finding out the neutrinos. It is supposed to come up in Tamil Nadu, but there are many objections from the civil society. This article says that these objections are irrational and unfounded. Next is mending the rift. This article is about recent Qatar crisis. You know that 5 Arab countries have imposed economic and diplomatic sanctions against Qatar. In this, Saudi Arabia has set a list of intended functions Qatar is expected to perform to remove these economic and diplomatic sanctions. What they are: one is severing the ties with Iran, not funding the terrorists, are providing a sanction against and providing or closing Al Jazeera TV and closing the military bases, air bases of Turkey in Qatar. These are the various restrictions. Now, can Qatar follow all these things? Probably not. Not just the Qatar, the 5 members who wanted these things, they themselves do not follow these. If you take UAE, United Arab Emirates, it has strong economic ties with Iran. And Saudi Arabia itself was accused of supporting the Sunni extremists in entire West Asia. So in these circumstances, restricting the Qatar and its relations is a new chapter in diplomacy where the sovereignty of one country is breached by the group of countries in Gulf Cooperation Council. India has an important lesson in this. The first is India is dependent on the West Asia for its oil or energy security. Second, most of the remittances for India comes from this region, and it also has around 8 million Indians living over there. So that's why India cannot keep itself away from this. So a solution is expected to come, but however, India need to follow this very closely as its energy security is very much dependent on the region. That's what this article says. The next is, let's go to the open ed page. An old new tax. It is about GST problems. You know that GST is meant for one tax rate for one nation. If you go to United States of America, all the products are taxed at the same rate. But in India, the GST has different rates: 0%, 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%, like that different rates are there. And second thing is, the over and above this, union government can also impose cess for the sin goods. So multiple rate regime is still continuing even today. And on the same products, let's take hotel prices. Based on the price of the hotel room, the tax rate also changes. So the multiple rates and on the same product, multiple tax rates are also existing in India. So what is the change the GST is going to bring in? Previously, different states have different rates. Now all the states are going to have one single rate. Why did the government of India go for this model? You know that politicians have negotiated the GST, not the tax authorities or tax experts. State interests need to be accommodated with regard to the federalism is concerned. And finally, a status quoist mentality exists among us and our system that made the complexity of the existing sales tax, VAT and excise duties to continue with the GST. Now, let's go to the news page. So if you see, when carbon dioxide crosses 350 parts per million, it can be a potential factor to cause the climate change. So in India, it has been identified that it has reached 399 parts per million. It means India is vulnerable to significant climate change events. And let's go to the Prime Minister Modi's visit to United States of America. What are the issues that are expected to be discussed with Mr. Trump and at the delegation level of talks? USA is expecting India to sign 3 defense foundational agreements. Already India has signed logistics memorandum agreement, and then you have CISMOVA and bilateral cooperation or else defense cooperation with regard to exchange of information on overseas. So there are 3 foundational agreements which India is expected to sign. So US may push India for signing these agreements. And also 3 conflict areas. One is Afghanistan, Syria and Iraq. And US is revising its Afghan policy, and this can come for discussion over there. And then trade, especially the protectionist attitude which US accuses of India, and lack of protection for intellectual property rights, these may come for discussion. From Indian side, India may talk about strengthening the strategic relationship and terrorism in Pakistan, and also visa restrictions US is trying to impose. These can be discussed. India may ask Myanmar to end ceasefire with NSCNK. You know that Nagaland, this National Socialistic Council of Nagaland, the Kaplang faction, it has violated the ceasefire in Manipur, and India has to take in hard pursuit crossing the border to attack these hideouts. Now here, Indian government was unable to get much help from the Myanmar government for the reason that with NSC and Kaplang faction, Myanmar government has a ceasefire agreement. Now government wants to take talks forward on ending this ceasefire agreement so that a decisive action can be taken on these insurgent groups. That is what it has been stated. And then let's go next page. So here I have given you the notes. This notes is available to you at lahex.in/civils-prep. And then we're also shifting this into a separate web platform to organize it. And then lahex.in/test-prep, you have all the courses listed over here, which is like a marketplace where Sosin Madam's anthropology classes are available. And also you have test series for general studies, essay, and we have medical sciences, public administration, anthropology. And I'm very happy to announce you one thing. The teacher whom I admire the most, Mr. Venkata Mohan sir, he is ready to take ethics test or ethics module on our platform. He is part of Law Excellence. He is ready to bring in an ethics module. It's going to be a game changer with regard to ethics is concerned. I strongly believe that he is the teacher whom I admire the most. Thank you very much. All the best.